through the rest
Enjoy.
of today. Thank you. It's my birthday, and so I'm just doing I
Oh,
happen to go away.
congratulations. Perfect.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Okay, we are live, and I'm going to make you host or Chris. Who do you want to be host?
Donna.
Donna?
Okay.
Make Donna, you can be the host. Will you make me the co-host just in case?
Yeah, because I'm having a storm coming, so I need to make somebody else a co-host.
Okay, yeah, make me the co-host.
Right, and me as well, so I can get back on if needed.
Anybody else want to be co-host? Here comes Kara. Sandy, you sure you don't want to be co-host?
No, I hear loud thunder outside my door as well, my window as well.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay, this is
Kara.
all. Oh, I've got to record.
Okay. Donna, you want to throw up the agenda?
Yep. Hold on. I'm getting it.
That's all right. So I got to see Kara Beatty in person. Donna and I did on Saturday night. Only the second time since I've been here that I've seen Kara. I realized we did meet at a very early brain injury meeting, but this would be only the second time we've met in person. So it's nice to get to start seeing people in person again. Hope we get to see all of you soon, and as having as much fun as Kara was on Saturday night. So
I did have a really good time.
It was a beautiful event held by Community Brain Injury Services, their Lifting the Silence annual gala. So that was a great way to kick off going into the community. So Kara M. I know we just kind of threw this at you relatively quickly. What we thought maybe we could do today was, before looking at the draft agenda and getting the executive committee feedback, and as a part of that is to just look at what's kind of required of the council per bylaws and its structure, so that you have a sense of what is required in a year. And then look at the agenda, and there might be some things to talk about a little bit more in depth as a part of that to give you all, the executive committee, a little bit deeper understanding going into the meeting about those kinds of things. Does that work for everyone? Is there anything else that you all would like to make sure that we do on the agenda or with the time today?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm also good with it. I actually really like that y'all sent this template out. I like bullet points.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, we're always just within a day or two, but sometimes we just need the time to see what's going on. So if you look at the calendar, there are certain things per the bylaws right now, and next year we will be looking at updating the bylaws that drive what happens. And there are a few things that are on there that aren't necessarily driven by the bylaws, and I'll point them out. January, which always kicks off the year, is when the Nominations and Elections Committee presents their slate for the council to vote on. And actually, it is at the July meeting when that committee is appointed. So we'll be talking about that today as part of the meeting. At that point, the chair, that would be Kara M., also appoints a bylaws committee that is chaired by the secretary. So Kara B., that will be you. And as you did in January, the chair appoints a priorities committee. And one of the things that we were thinking that would be helpful is to kick off the calendar year with BIAV setting the stage with their legislative brief, what they'll be advocating for in the General Assembly, their updates to prevalence and disability of brain injury, and the results of their needs assessment report that comes from what they're hearing from the folks that contact them with INR. So we got away from that a little bit last year, in part because of COVID, in part just because of restructuring. But as we go through the whole year, which is not, there's only 4 meetings, just think about that. And if you like that place, or if you've got thoughts about a different way to provide that information to council, we do feel that it's very valuable information for council to have. When they get it, you may have some input on, or there may be different information that you want as well. At the April meeting is when the Priorities Committee presents its recommendations. Now, that's in the proposed bylaw changes. This year, using the existing bylaws, it will actually be presented at the July meeting, but then we'll turn right around, and as we talked about at the last meeting, get those things sooner, because really after May, there's not a lot that the commissioner can do with the information in the priorities letter. So we would update the bylaws to allow that. And the Priorities Committee, which is meeting on Monday, is aware of that, and we'll be thinking about that and how they address their tasks. Every July and every June and December, or probably next year, every July and January, we have to report to ACL about the last 6 months of the federal grant. So we thought that maybe April and October would be good times to summarize that information to the council and keep them more connected to what we're doing in the federal grant. So we have that there, but again, something for you to consider.
Can I make a suggestion there, or I have a thought there? I'm wondering, because it doesn't start till July, the next one won't start till July, if maybe those reports should come in January and July to give us a full 6 months to actually report activity.
Well, you'll have to do your first 6-month report in January. And so
Right.
the next meeting after that would be April. The next board meeting after that would be April.
Okay.
But let's look at the year as a whole and then get everybody's thoughts.
Yeah, because
So
that 6-month report is due right about the same time as the January meeting and right about the same time as the July meeting.
Right, that's why reporting to the council is in April. So you write the
Okay.
report in January and submit it to ACL, and then you share that report with the council 2 months later in April. or
So
3
you're
months later in
essentially
April.
reporting on the report. Like you're not prepping, right? You're reporting on what you submitted.
Yes.
Right.
So it would get submitted in January 2022 and would be reported to council in April 2022.
Okay. And then I'm also wondering if
Can we
it
go
might
through the
not
whole
be
year,
valuable.
Donna? Can
I'm sorry.
we go through the whole year and then come back and get people's thoughts just to make sure that there's not something that's coming up?
Okay.
So in July, and this will be the upcoming meeting, you'll see it on the agenda, the Nominations and Elections Committee needs to be appointed. If there's been a Bylaws Committee, which there was not this year, they report back. And then I just tucked this there, you know, once we get a state plan, how does the council want to monitor that? Food for thought to get some feedback from you all. And then in October, the Nominations and Elections Committee presents its officer slate. And again, we would be doing the semi-annual federal grant report. So that's a picture of the whole year. So Donna, go ahead.
I was just going to wonder if at the April meeting, if maybe another legislative brief might not be warranted with what actually happened during the session. And I mean, you may not think so, but I was just wondering, because, you know, that one is what we're planning to do, and at the end, it would be what worked and what didn't.
Definitely something that we would like the feedback from the executive committee on. So one of the things in asking you to look at this, in addition to just making sure you're aware of kind of what definitely needs to happen when, is we want to make sure that the meetings are balanced. So it's, you know, we've heard from people in the past, nobody wants to just sit there and be reported to. And how do we balance some of these meetings? You know, clearly the January meeting is setting the stage for the calendar year, even if it's not the start of the actual, you know, it kicks off the new officer slate. It kind of sets the tone. How do we do that in a way that helps people kind of feel like, okay, I'm starting the year informed. And then in the other 3 meetings of the year, how do we balance what has to be done with what the council would like to do, what kind of discussions it would like to have, what it wants to learn, you know, what it wants to discuss or debate or talk about, what it wants to hear about. So I'm curious some of your preliminary thoughts, and this can be something that you take to the full council for a discussion as well.
I was actually going to just suggest that we present this to the whole council to get some input as well. So I think that's a good idea, just to take this and carry this to the next meeting.
I like that this provides a kind of a roadmap and, you know, has some things that keep us on track and that we can anticipate. So I think it's really helpful, even if we end up moving some items around. I like the bullets, you know, and the details.
Is there anything, before you take it to council, are there thoughts that you have about things you want to move around, or things you'd really like to see be a regular part of the schedule? Sandy, also, you know, do you have thoughts on moving forward with this?
You know, I'm so new to all of this. I really don't feel like my opinion would have value. And the things that I find that are important to me may not be important to everyone. So, and again, because I don't know a lot about all of these things that need to be taken care of every few months, that I really don't feel like I can really offer much of an opinion.
Well, Sandy, I think you bring us 2 really important perspectives. One is the fact that because you are relatively new, you look at it with fresh eyes, and not the eyes that are like, oh, well, this is the way it's always been done. Your eyes will look at it and go, well, why have you always done it that way? So don't ever be afraid to say that. And then the other piece is that you bring us the perspective of a family member. So when you say that there are things that are important to you that might not be important to other folks, that's exactly why you're on this board. So don't be afraid to share those thoughts.
Okay.
You know, something I think I've been on the council long enough to wonder about is the balance between conducting business and providing some professional development for members. You know, I've questioned at times the ways that professional development has been delivered, because often it's delivered in the form of like a 30-minute lecture or even up to an hour lecture at the end of the meeting when people are tired. You know, in some cases, the presenter doesn't really, you know, doesn't make it a discussion. So we have like good information, but then 3 months go by, I've been like, what are we going to do with this information? We just had this presentation. What's next? So I guess I don't have an answer to this, but I guess a question is, what's the role of us kind of developing our knowledge as brain injury advocates or advisors or consultants, and how do we do that? How do we create space for that? That's not like the sage on the stage lecture, death by lecture.
Kara, Sandy, what do you think about that?
Sorry, Cindy, I was gonna jump in here. I don't wanna run over if you had anything, but I think that's actually an excellent idea. Cause I was thinking actually while Kara was talking, like, yes, I'm always drained by the end. And I know it's always some really cool stuff that they bring in to talk to us about, but just figuring out what that is. And yeah, what is that role in the professional development? I'd also make that clear. I don't know. I know it's sort of like taking a sip of water from a fire hydrant when you first get started, because there's just so much stuff going on. But I think if we could just make it a little more structured, just make it a little more clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it, putting in just more explanation.
Nice. Sandy, do you have thoughts on the role of council educating itself and professional development?
Well, I would be interested in some development assistance with learning how the council works and how everything goes. I'm a hands-on person with knowledge of brain injury by having a son who has a brain injury, being a caretaker. And as far as the council's agendas and things like that, they're all new to me. There's really one agenda for me that's the main important that never gets addressed. So my whole role being here was to try to help that agenda. But I know that there are cycles and things that we need to go through here and steps that you need to take, and all people need to be addressed. And so, yeah, I could really use some development in as far as my role here, and basically the whole big picture of how everything, what you all do actually. I mean, I have my basic understanding, but yeah, I could use some public development. I mean, not public development, but professional development in what we're doing.
Well, and Kara, I think it's an interesting point that you brought up in this, and it might be something that want to take in that conversation to council, and maybe we just throw a survey out there to gather all the ideas. But when we look at the council engagement survey, which was one of the results that we were going to talk about, that we're suggesting that maybe you include in the agenda for the next meeting, having something that you can do something with in between meetings, and or that gives people information and talking points were two pieces of feedback that came back out of that council engagement survey. So I think you guys are right on track that other people are feeling that way, that it's across the council, so to speak. So so it might be that talking about the council engagement survey is a way through which to address this issue of both balancing the council schedule and what people might be interested in, and then that puts it on staff and the executive committee, I think, to kind of work on making those presentations such that they're a little bit more interactive, and also scheduling them in a way that they're not rushed at the last of a very long meeting. One of the things that we're going to be talking about as well at the next meeting is that with the governor, hey Mike, welcome. With
Hi,
the governor.
sorry guys, I'm waiting on an Uber because I got a flat tire. So
No.
but I'm
Oh
here.
my gosh.
I apologize for my tardiness. This is 2 days in a row. So
Oh, Well, we're just glad. We didn't think you could join us at all because of your schedule, so we're just glad, and we're sorry about your tires.
All good. So you guys can keep rolling. I won't keep you guys, and I'll listen in and go back and check everything else that I missed.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So it may be that if after talking to the council and getting their feedback, it kind of comes back to staff and the executive committee to look at how we bring that in and do it in a way, and we can help. You can give us the direction, and then Donna and I can help to make those things happen.
Sandy, I don't want to put you on in the spotlight, but you mentioned that you were here for one agenda, and I think I know what it is, but I'm interested to hear from you.
Okay, I'm happy to share it.
Please, yes.
There are 15 people who are from Virginia, born and raised in Virginia, who got in accidents, various types of accidents, and sustained brain injuries. And they all can't, can't live in a home. They have to live in an institutionalized setting. My son is one of them. They know what's happened to them. They're aware of everything about their life. They remember everything before their accidents, but they have physical issues and mental issues now as a result, all varying types. My son's in a wheelchair and needs complete care, but he is aware. He can sit and talk and laugh and have memories and everything. And born and raised in Virginia, just as Virginia boy as he can be, and as are they all. And not only did this tragedy happen to them, it happened to their families. And then there's nowhere in Virginia that can take care of them. So all 15 of them were shipped off to Boston to live on the third floor of an institution where their families have to travel and just to see them. They can't get visitors every week. I can't do his laundry for him. I can't take him out to dinner in his wheelchair once a week. All these families basically are estranged from their family member who is suffering from a brain injury. And there should be somewhere in Virginia, one hospital that will have one unit that will take care of them here. And we don't have that. And they have to be on kind of a lockdown type Alzheimer's type unit where they have to be very closely supervised, and they have to have strong helpers because they get out of line, because they have issues with being able to focus and not get angry and control themselves, impulsivity. And there's just nowhere in Virginia that will take care of these 15 people, yet Virginia is paying Massachusetts to take care of our people. And it's very expensive up there. And we need to bring our Virginia folks back home. And my son included. I haven't seen my son in over a year because of the pandemic as well. But just to go spend a weekend with him costs me about $500. And that's, a car payment, And so that issue is very near and dear to my heart. And anything I can do to help represent those 15 people who have been taken away from their families because of trauma, and then because they can't stay in the state to be taken care of because they are on Medicare and Medicaid. So that's it. That's my one agenda for those people.
I mean, yeah.
It's not an easy one to solve.
No. And I thought that was the issue. And hearing it, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. Because it is so upsetting and it is so tragic. But I realize that is something that we vote on. That is something that when we had to choose, what do you think the funds should go to? That was on there. I guess my question would be, how many people understand what a neurobehavioral center is like that, or institute? And my suggestion would be that possibly during some of our professional development, we could actually show what this is, what a neurobehavioral center is. Just like I think one of the things we're talking about transportation. What is transportation like? What is case management like for people with brain injuries? Because I think that that would be a great place to get more insight. I also with my love-hate relationship with all things telehealth and technology-wise, I do appreciate that now that we are all very familiar with doing these types of Zoom calls and things, we could be able to talk to somebody up at Braintree in Massachusetts, understand what that is. Because I think if we have that knowledge, I think that's going to give us more power to advocate for that. And, you know, when we do reach a point, I'm very hopeful. I just want to put that out in the universe. When we get to a
Thank
point
you.
where we can build that here, we'll have an idea from the council.
Right. Well, I can connect us with anyone up there because they all know me. You know, so very well. I'm a mama bear, you know, so when it comes to that, we can connect.
Can I just really quick double up on what was just said too, of like, I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about these situations of what these facilities look like and what it entails. I would welcome that conversation to say, hey, we keep talking about neurobehavioral, this is actually what it is. And then from there, it's like, what approach is taken? Because it sounds like it needs to be done either by a private facility or by the state. And I just don't know what the next step would be for us other than advocacy to put, like, where are we putting funds? Is there any way to do it? Is it a hospital system that we need to get involved? I just don't know what that looks like. But I think a great starting point is, what do these facilities look like? What are the things that are entailed in this, and what are we missing in Virginia? I think would be welcome.
That's music to my ears. and I can definitely be a part of that task force.
Well, I just love it, and I think, Cara Beatty, you started it, you know, in terms of talking about we've got to make these things real for people. They, you know, what does neurobehavioral mean, and what is Braintree and what's going on there, and even around, you know, when we talk about transportation for people with brain injury, you know, maybe we need to get some people who use and who would use if they had it, transportation, and what the barriers and challenges are. We've talked about being more person-centered as a council, and so maybe be hearing from parents like Sandy and transportation and case management users, consumers who use those services, to tell the council, here's what that means, and here's also what it could mean. You know, here's our input into what that goes.
Yeah, I mean, as a provider, I was when we were at the engagement on or the event on Saturday night. Anytime I saw somebody with this sticker on that said they were, and I'd introduce myself, they're like, oh, I'm a case manager, and I was like, oh my goodness, I love you. And they're just like, what? And I was like, I am a provider, and I can tell you the difference that you make with patients that have a brain injury, and we miss stuff. And then having somebody there that's like, essentially like this agenda, like, I'm going to get to the bullet points. Don't forget to bring up this. Don't forget about that. So yeah, I think it would just be, you know, I'm a firm believer knowledge is power. So the more that we educate, the further we can go.
Oh, sorry. A little bit, are we saying then that we'll use the discussion about, would you like to use the discussion about the engagement survey to then go into a professional development or council education, you know, making sure that we're bringing up some topics in terms of really making things real for people and helping people's understanding? And one of the biggest topics that's been rolling around, and Mike, I appreciate that you said it out loud, because I got to admit, I was here for about 8 months and I was afraid to say, what is neurobehavioral? What is this? That as the council and the staff, we all need to make sure that we understand and that we're talking about it. And we've got people on council that we can invite, and other people. So we have Sandy, who has the parents' perspective. and we can connect with some people at Braintree. We have Barbara Seymour who can tell us about what the money issues are from Medicaid's perspective, and all of those perspectives are valuable, and we've got to get an understanding of them to even know any more about what to advocate for and how to move forward. We all know that we want those Virginians to come home, and we want Sandy to be able to see her son on a regular basis, but we got to learn a little bit more about what it will take to advocate and make that happen. Is that feeling comfortable to people as what we do with the agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that, and you said something too of saying making it real for people, and having those experiences to say this is what my experience is and this is why it's lacking. I think is so good to part of the story, but educating people to make that real. So
I agree.
All right, Sandy, thank you for taking, well, actually, thank you, all four of you, for taking us to a very real place that I think is going to add a lot of depth to the council meetings. Because I think you've touched on something that a lot of people are feeling. Okay. So let's look at the proposed agenda then and get your feedback on that and talk around a few things if you want to. Donna, can you move us a little bit? Can you move us down to item 3 on the agenda? So again, just for the purposes of you all understanding, we try to always, when we're putting together a draft, and we put this together really as something for you to just be able to then play with, because my experience is it's easier to have something to react to than to just try to come up with something. And we put the time limits in there so that you can also have a sense. And this potential agenda, which is probably going to get changed based on the discussion that we just had, is at 155 out of 60 minutes. So, and some of that is padded a little bit. So if we look at the first thing, all those things that we have to do to get set up, usually 20 to 25 minutes, roll call, agenda, approve the minutes. We think we will have a new agency representative that will be joining us, so that will be somebody to introduce as well. And then July is the month in which Council needs to appoint a nominations and elections committee. Now, the good news for this is the first vote that comes up will have to do with the new officers. So we're asking all of you to think about whether or not you will continue. Madam Chair, I think you signed up for a 2-year tour. So, yeah.
They're all multi-year except for Cara Beatty.
Okay. So, Cara, you think about, would you come back for another year? Mike and Sandy, you're in. So that one makes that relatively easy. And there's only one member whose term ends next year. Donna, I've already forgotten. Mr. Reynolds, right? And it's the end of his first term. So it could be as simple as asking him if he would like to return for another term, and that makes the work of the Nominations and Elections Committee very simple this year. So, the Priorities Committee is meeting next Monday midday. One of the things that's going on with them is, again, this is where the Priorities Committee has typically met, but they're going to, under our kind of new structure, they'll meet again in June. So we met with Jason Young, who is the chair, to kind of talk about that this might be a more simpler priorities letter that is a lead-in to what happens in January. So we don't know if they will be have a lot to present, or if they will be saying we need a little bit more time. We'll know more about that on Monday, and we'll fill you in on that. So we put that at about 30 minutes. That could be less depending on what they do. Now, what we've just been talking about is the council engagement survey results. And I sent you, really just a cut and paste version of that from last week, or I'm sorry, the other day. And I don't know how much you want to talk about that, or if you want to touch on that and use that to talk about the topic that we've just been spending time on. I think this is a place to really spend a little time about the agenda. But I just want to touch on the two other things that are on there and one that can definitely come off. So tomorrow, Donna and I are going to a meeting to hear about what, to remind us about what the requirements are for board and councils when there's not a state of an emergency. And what that means in terms of having to be in person versus virtual. When we're not under a state of emergency, members are allowed, I think it's one meeting per year to attend virtually. So we just thought that we should, since we expect that is going to end in July, after the July board meeting, council meeting, which will be virtual, I tell you that, that we need to talk a little bit about what that's going to mean going back. I just put an update on the federal grant application in case we had heard any good news by then, but that certainly doesn't have to be on the agenda and doesn't need 10 minutes. So looking at that agenda and kind of focusing in on item E, everything leading up to item E has to be in there. But E is how would you like to frame that? Would you like that to be the council engagement? Would you like to have multiple topics instead of that? What are your thoughts?
Well, this is Sandy. My thoughts on that are that 30 minutes, I just looked through that, was that report, wasn't that attached to this email? The survey?
Yes, it was.
I think I just looked through the survey, and I think you had 3 or 4 people who actually responded to it. And so, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't spend 30 minutes on it. I just don't know how relevant it is since there wasn't that much engagement in the engagement survey. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm always a little bit worried. I'm a researcher, so I always worry about representation. So on one hand, we could say, here's how the small group responded. If you didn't, what else are we thinking or feeling here? Or we could sort of cast that part aside and really focus the conversation on planning this template for future meetings. Introducing this this annual council schedule and getting feedback, as Kara had suggested, and then also building in a discussion of like what are the professional development pieces, like neurobehavioral. What could those look like? What are some things that we can really dig into that we can carry forth into our advocacy, not just listening and then forgetting, but something that we can make sure really informs our work.
Kara, Mike, Sandy, what do you think?
I think that sounds great. I agree with other Kara that that sounds like a better use of our time. And I like what Sandy did point out, only a few people engaged in this survey. So, maybe bringing other things to discussion would be better.
I think that's all valid in particular because it's because there wasn't much engagement with it. But is it prudent to engage, to have a discussion about like how we can get more engagement in this survey? I want to touch on the other things, but if the survey is something that we really need membership to be a part of, or we need people to engage with, then do we need to touch base on either how to get more to engage in that, or just the importance of it, or I just don't know. I don't want to glaze over it if it's something that's extremely important, but kind of shift the conversation up to how to get more engagement in these things. I just don't know. I wanted to throw that out to the group.
That sounds like a good idea to me. Trying to find new ways to engage everyone.
Well, and Kara M, as our research person, you know, the 50% participation in the survey, I think in an engagement survey, I think certainly, you know, does give you a moment to pause. Whether or not, you know, the discussion is about how many people participate in the survey versus if we learned anything from the results in terms of engagement, or how that speaks to what we could do to engage people more as council members in anything that the council does, not necessarily just a survey. We certainly could share the results of the survey and just say, you know, for your information, we want you to see what the results were because, you know, half of you participated in this, and be thinking about that as we go through the agenda, you know, as you participate in the next meeting. Or, I mean, we could just use that as food for thought. I don't know. Now I'm just talking in circles, so I'll be quiet.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, it may be just a quick discussion of you know, maybe this isn't valuable, or this isn't the best format for this, or I just don't know what that looks like. So
it seems like I'm taking another look at it. I think so. There actually were. Is it that? Do we have 15 responses? Is that correct?
We had 15 out of 28 board members. Yeah.
But down in some of the qualitative responses, I think there's some drop off, maybe. So it's not actually. It's not. I mean, it's a decent. It's actually a decent response rate. I guess the question is what's the purpose of this? You know, what are we hoping to extrapolate from this survey? Like, is the purpose of the survey to inform the meetings? Is it to make them better?
So the purpose of the survey, the truth story here is that this is a deliverable from the federal grant. So in 2019, there was a pre-survey. However, that survey included current and former council members. So the idea was to do pre and post to see if changes that were made during council during that time impacted engagement, but we couldn't really compare the pre and post since there were people in the first group, the pre-group, that weren't attending the council members, so wouldn't. So an attempt was made to ask questions in terms of what people's experiences had been during their tenure. I do think a lot of it goes to speak to what you've been talking about, and you know, and that's why it may just be an attachment and a reference that, look, we kind of heard what you're saying. People want more concrete things to be able to be working on. People are on this council because they care, whether because they're a parent like Sandy or they're Mike, who works with kids and sees what's happening to young people. So it could just be pointing out a little bit that we're responding to those survey results, and that's why you want to look at the agenda and talk more about a professional development aspect of council that, as Kara said so beautifully, and hopefully I can read my own writing, how you just described that in terms of how it informs people in their advocacy as members of the council and representatives.
So going back to that or jumping off that, it'd also be, I had no idea why we had to do this survey. Okay, I'm honestly, I don't know. I don't remember. I think I did it when Chris like sent it like, do this. But I mean, I think having the explanation, this is something that federal grant want us to do. And we did get some good info out of it, which is interesting based on our discussion, just the things that people want, clearly defined tasks and more education and team building. So just putting that out there.
Kara M, as chair and as someone with experience in talking about these kinds of things, would you be comfortable kicking off this conversation, in terms of, this was a grant deliverable, but
Sure.
based on the things that we saw in here, we're going to go here instead, and we can rename that agenda item.
Okay.
To talk about council schedule and processes, or council development.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to tweak that item E. We're going to get rid of item H. It's still a relatively tight agenda, but we expect some things to go a little bit faster. Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with where we are for the upcoming meeting, and then where that hopefully will take us?
Yeah.
I am.
Yes. And I just want to.
I am too.
Yeah, I am. I want to confirm. Okay, so this isn't actually on June 23rd. It said that proposed agenda. The meeting is July.
July. Sorry, that's me.
June 23rd, big day,
No.
my birthday. So I'm like, wait, how did I miss this? I have other things planned.
It was going to be a surprise, Kara, but never mind. Okay. Thank you. Not Kara's birthday. It'll be in July. Sandy, you comfortable with where we're going with things?
Absolutely. It sounds wonderful. I think that's a very good idea.
You've already moved on to the next meeting and the Braintree presentation. Haven't you?
No. I was actually just looking at this and I was thinking June 23rd, and I was like, as long as it's not August, I'm going to Scotland in August to see my other son. So as long as there's no conflict with August, it's good.
Oh, congratulations. Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you. Good to see my grandkids.
Oh.
You have grandkids in Scotland?
Yes. My son, who has the brain injury, is actually a twin, and his twin brother lives in Scotland with his wife, and they have 2 children. So I'm going to visit him. Yeah.
So do your grandchildren have Scottish brogues?
They do. They call me grandma. And I love it. But yeah, it's more of an English sounding accent, really, but they do a little.
Well, that makes my whole day hearing that part. Well, Donna wanted to talk to you a little bit. We have a few minutes left. Donna just wanted to check in about what might work best for everybody in terms of planning for these executive committee meetings. We really do appreciate that you all are adding this extra time to what you do, but Donna and I find it so valuable. We learn a lot, and we just enjoy, getting to know things like Sandy has grandchildren with Scottish accents, and cool stuff like that, and watching, who doesn't enjoy watching Mike take an Uber? So Donna, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So we're going to be needing to do these things like 6 weeks ahead of regular quarterly council routinely. And I mean, I know schedules are tight. Kara, my center, particularly yours, is tight. Sandy can't meet before 3. Mike can't meet generally after 4 most times. So maybe getting something on the calendar earlier rather than later would be a better idea than scrambling 6 weeks ahead of time. What do you guys think about that?
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
I
since
can-
there are 5, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I can
Mike.
accommodate earlier if I have advance notice.
Okay, yeah, okay, Sandy. So now, I would really like to go ahead and schedule. Yeah, I don't really know what you guys can see and what you can't on my screen. What are you looking at right now?
Hey, Donna, can I say something real quick? I'm sort of waiting on something about my teaching schedule for the fall. So I'm
Okay.
happy to schedule something, but there's a slight chance it may need to be tweaked. So I'm just putting that out there. I should know in about a month.
Okay, so once you get your teaching schedule for the fall, maybe that's when we do the scheduling for this, moving forward for the rest of the year or something like that.
That would be better for me as well, because I'll have probably through February scheduled out for athletics.
Okay, so Clara, whenever you get your teaching schedule, then if you can let me know, you and I can put together some ideas for dates and we can send out a doodle poll to everybody. Does that work for you, Cara Beatty?
Yeah, that's great. As long as I have enough time in advance. And I think based on, everybody else's schedules, it's easier for me to just move patients around. Everybody's pretty understanding about that.
All right, then I'll wait to hear from you, Cara, and then we'll go ahead and schedule the September and December meetings. Then that'll get us out through when Mike is scheduled through.
Thank you all so much. You are just truly a delight to work with. We really appreciate it, and just learning so much, and I just, it's building my excitement every time I talk with you guys about the next meeting. So, all right. Well, then Donna will start working on getting her materials ready for the next meeting, and we'll let you know what we find out after tomorrow when we hear a little bit more about meeting requirements. And on Monday, you're a little bit more from the priorities committee.
Sounds great. Thank you all for all you do.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, thanks, everybody.
Sandy, thanks for taking us deeper. We really appreciated that today.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.